Green Chatters, and welcome to another episode here on the Green Living Chat podcast. My name is David Owusu-Mensah and I'm your host here on the podcast. Today, I'm super excited to come your way with an exciting episode with my very own Dr. Pau Ródenas Motos on why we should take a different look at wastewater before we discharge it. Dr. Pau works as a technical project manager at AINIA, a private technology center in Valencia, dedicated to Agrifood, Pharma and Chemical industries. He is an expert in water technology with more than 10 years of research experience in bioelectrochemistry, desalination, resource recovery, and nanotechnology. And today, super excited to dive into conversations with Dr. Pau as we talked all about wastewater. We look at a different aspect of wastewater that has been missing a lot in our conversations because we are not paying too much attention to it. Did you know that we could actually recover nutrients and important compounds, including metals, from wastewater before we discharge them? And these recovered components could be valuable back in the industry or wherever they were generated. So we dive into the services and technology that AINIA has adapted and some of the projects that Dr. Pau is leading his team to work. We talked about some of the misconceptions and some of the things that are very important for you to know as a consumer of water and also as a CEO or project manager of a company or industry who is looking or seeking to dive into such approaches. So without wasting too much time, let's dive into that conversation. But before we do that, y'all know that the COP27 is over. And as we mentioned in the last episode, we really do hope this COP doesn't give us more excuses to wait for COP28. And well, they were able to adapt a loss and damage fund, which we are excited about that this is coming up. But guess what? In as much as there's a new fund to take care of loss and damage, please note that we are continuously going to need that fund because we are not willing to cut down our emissions. Probably the urgency of climate change has not been loud enough. Who knows where the problem is? Anyways, let's dive into today's conversation and I hope to see you on the other side. This is the Green Living Chat podcast. Here, we define sustainability, educate and discuss feasible solutions to achieve a regenerative ecosystem. In a world where sustainability has become a cliche and misused in practice, we bring you inspiring stories from the industry, research and development, and all stakeholders in between. And together, we can promote the sustainability agenda across the globe. This podcast is proudly produced and sponsored by our team at Eco Amit Solutions in Ghana. We come your way with new episodes this and every Sunday at 6 p.m. GMT. So dear Green Chatters, let's get started. Hi, Dr. Pau. Thank you so much for joining me today on the Green Living Chat podcast. I'm super excited about this. It's always exciting to have someone that I personally have had interesting experience with, and I'm super glad you can join me today on the podcast. Thank you so much for making time for this. You're welcome.
Thank you, David. It's been a pleasure for me. We have been working together and we have a nice relation. It has been always a pleasure for me to talk with you.
Thank you so much. I mean, well, if you're listening, you wonder which kind of relationship this is. And Dr. Pau was my supervisor during my PhD, which I'm wrapping up very soon. And he was just amazing and phenomenal. He is really, really kind to me, taught me so many things throughout my career. And so I'm super excited to be talking water issues and, why we shouldn't waste water and why we should pay attention to some of these few things. Trust me, he's one of the best in the industry we can speak to. So let's get to know a little bit about you, Dr. Pau. Probably this will give me an exciting opportunity to get to know things that I never got to know about you and your childhood whilst you were growing up. But before we dive into that, what are some of the things, or what is this one thing that brings you joy and happiness?
For me, it's personally spend time with friends around a table.
Yeah.
Enjoy good meal, good moments, and just let the time pass with nice jokes, nice anecdotes, and good moments with friends, and laughing with about jokes from friends. It's like
Exactly.
good companions are always welcome.
Exactly. I can totally attest to that because you always used to bring this feeling in the lab when we were just working and always bring this fact that, hey, let's go grab a coffee, let's go grab some, food. And I remember exciting when we had this, journey around Spain and my professor came from China and you took us around. It was really an exciting time and really, really can attest to that. What a phenomenal time. Anyway, so let's get to dive into this a little bit. So when you were going to do your bachelor's and your master's, and even with your PhD, did you have in mind that I want to enter into, the water industry? What are some of the things that you can remember in your childhood that's sort of linked to what you're doing now? Because this might be very helpful for some people who are coming up in this industry, right?
Yeah, from the beginning, I started, especially in my childhood, during summers, spending most of the summers with my grandparents, helping them with their crops, harvesting tomatoes, peppers, and water was really important thing here, at least in Valencia region. When you use water from a canal, you need to ask for permission and then open the water for irrigation, at least on the old times. Now, most of the processes are automatized right now. But in the past, like 30 years ago, people used to ask for permission for the irrigation of the crops.
Interesting.
And I helped my grandfather to open the canal and bring the water to the peppers or the tomatoes.
Yes.
And it was fascinating for me. Later on, I had the opportunity to visit my first wastewater treatment plant with my father. He was also a chemist. They had also a wastewater treatment plant in their factory, and I was quite amazed of the amount of steps that there was in for treat water inside only for a tile factory at the moment. And I was asking, where the water is coming from, and where the water is going after this, and what do you do with this? And was quite amazing for me that I was in the high school at that moment. Later on, I started university and I started learning more about water and water treatment and all the possibilities and the importance of water for the environment and for any process. We can say that it's the universal solvent and it's used for almost everything in industry, in our lives, and or every day. Later on, I started my master and I linked water to energy with working with water splitting process with semiconductors. Somehow I jumped to the Netherlands, working in another project, in this case for a European project about metal recovery with bioelectrochemical systems. That was more related to the things that that I was doing when we met. That I was working with bioelectrochemical systems at the time for metal recovery. And later on, I finished my PhD and I traveled to Madrid and I started to work on desalination with microbial field systems.
Yeah. Wow. What an interesting journey you have had and experience that you have gathered all from childhood, and especially with the experience from your grandparents, with your parents, and dropping all these kind of ideas into your mind. And then it developed into sort of what you could study and what you could sort of consider as a career. I want us to sort of define a little bit of what we're going to discuss today. We made mention a lot about water and wastewater. Can you take us through sort of briefly the process of sort of converting water into wastewater and what happens afterwards? Just to give us a little bit background to, the conversation that we're going to have today. So what happens to water and then it just turns to become wastewater, and what are we supposed to do with that?
Water can come from many origins. No,
Yeah.
You can take it from a well, and or you can harvest from rivers and get it from rivers or lakes and it's supposed to be clean, but you are gonna use for home use, you need to potabilize, or if you are gonna use it for certain industrial uses, you also need to potabilize, especially when it comes for industry or agriculture. You need always to at least for certain crops, you will need to have certain quality. of water, or at least certain standards to make it useful. Later on, you use in your process. It can be in industry or use it at home, and then it became wastewater after your processing. For example, we take it and then we use it for cooking or for washing or for showering or for drinking, and then everything goes to the toilet or the shower.
Exactly.
And then it's wastewater. The idea is that it goes through the sanitation system, and there is supposed to be a wastewater treatment plant that harvests all the wastewater and transform it into water with certain quality to be released again to the environment. That will be the short explanation, but there is a lot of
things in between.
Things in between that in industry it can be quite similar, but you can have the wastewater treatment plant inside in your factory, or you can send your wastewaters to a wastewater treatment plant. Depends also of the quality of the water.
Exactly.
That you are treated.
So I asked this question because there are a lot of misconceptions in the industry when it comes to water treatment and then wastewater treatment itself. And then I think this is basically because of some of the difference in sort of supply of water. I mean, water is not equally distributed around the world. And as you mentioned from the beginning, people can get their sources from river, boreholes, wells, and people just open their tap and they can just find it. People have to walk kilometers before they can fetch water and other things like that. And of course, development actually differs across the globe. So people have different access to water. So normally people focus more on water itself as a resource, taking it and using it for their processing, than actually considering what wastewater is and how resourceful wastewater could be. Because, I mean, from our conversation today, we will later realize how important wastewater is and what we can actually derive out of it. But then I would like you to highlight a little bit. Let's focus more on wastewater now. Why is wastewater super important, and why should we consider it sort of as a resource, and probably also think of treating it before discharging it into the environment?
First of all, because you have water itself. Water is a resource, as you said. If you can recycle, regenerate, reuse it, it always let you the opportunity to have not to walk miles away to get more water. Another important thing is that you can have on your wastewater important resources that could be used. For example, you can transform the organic matter into valuable compounds, into energy. For example, fermentating it and used to produce methane or as an energy vector. Or you can use, for example, technologies to transform those resources to fermented and valuable compounds. You can also have compounds that can recover. It depends, especially of the industry. In these industry cases, you can have, for example, sugars that you can concentrate and that later on use for fermentative processes. You can have, for example, nutrients that you can recover those nutrients for later on use to make fertilizers that are also valuable compounds and are extensively used in agriculture. They are starting to be scarce in some regions, all these fertilizers, because, for example, nitrogen and phosphorus. Nitrogen you need to use usually Haber-Bosch process, or bring it from, for example, proteins that are made by the nitrogen fixating plants. And phosphorus, we are quite dependent of phosphorus mines that are only in certain places of the world. Mainly, the main producer is Morocco. Many countries depends of this phosphorus to later on produce fertilizers. Why not to recover all these nutrients and start to be independent of all these processes that are or they require quite a lot of energy on transport or just in the energetic process that the Haber-Bosch process requires, or they also need a lot of impact extension for example, to get a lot of phosphorus, you need to have mining on the regions and process all these minerals.
these are very interesting things that we are discovering today in this conversation. But actually, what baffles my mind and what I'm really finding more interesting is, to an everyday person, we just knew that, okay, wastewater from the municipal wastewater treatment plant is just connected to our houses and few industries here and there. And so, yeah, they just, treat the water, and then after that, they disinfect it. The rest is just sludge, and then the sludge is dried, and then they put it somewhere. So if you're someone who is just thinking about this is the normal everyday system, now what Dr. Pau is trying to explain to us here is that wastewater could contain several different nutrients from different sources, which could be that industry or from our homes, but then we can actually recover these things which were actually input there before we discharge them into rivers or into the environment. And this actually helps us to actually, recover all the things that we might have deposited in the water during our usage. And this is super interesting. I mean, right now you are working with AINIA. I mean, this company is specializing in this area, and this is what you actually do on an everyday basis. Could you take us through some of the specialties and some of the interesting technologies or initiatives you guys are working on, especially in terms of this recovery, and how is that important to sort of national development in terms of, economic benefits and ecological and health and
First
stuff
of
like
all,
that?
AINIA, it's a technological center. That means that we are in between the academic and the industry, because it started as an association of companies that work allied together to have laboratories and facilities to do research. And then that's we have right now more than 700 companies that work are in as members of AINIA.
Wow.
That's quite a lot, and more than almost 1,900 companies that are clients. That is a lot, because we work mainly with agri-food sector. We work with food factories, with food technology producers of oranges, for example, to strawberries, or many kind of different crops, wineries. A lot of clients different that does work with a lot of different kinds of wastewater and different areas, because we are not only work with water, we work also with producing ingredients. We assess on sustainability and to the companies. We perform, for example, consumer tests for the companies. We have laboratories to assess that the quality of the products have certain standards, are quite accredited laboratories to the industry to ensure that there is no dangerous stuff in your food. There is a lot of divisions. We work with bioplastics. We work with bioenergy produced from wastewater or other sources, that, for example, from food leftovers. Also, that it's quite broad. In my case, I'm on the environmental division and dealing with water. We go to the companies and say, okay, how you use the water? Can we optimize your use? Can we help you to recover valuable products or decrease your water use? All these kind of things that the food industry is quite concerned, because especially in this region, we have been in severe drought for 4 years. And then there is a lot of concern about water use.
I mean, this is super interesting because you have been in this industry at least for a couple of years. Is this idea of recovery, has this been explored worldwide? And are the people that you're working with sort of within Europe? Because I know you guys are working currently in Spain and you're working with lots of industries maybe around the world. But where do you think this kind of information and this idea is sort of lacking? Because I wonder if globally we all have this idea of, exploring and using wastewater in this way and recovering nutrients out
First
of
of
it.
all, I need to say that there are companies that have been working for several years and companies that have just started, because they start realizing that they need to be more concerned about their
Yeah.
sustainability and
Yeah.
get more insight on they bring it to the wastewater or what they live in the residues. Then it's a big concern for industry, and they start working with many projects. For example, one case is one European project that we just start. It's called Cheers, and it's with
Cheers.
Cheers, and it's with brewing factories. It's with a big company here from Spain.
Okay.
It's MAO. And the idea is that we have a consortium for exploit that all the side streams that have this industry. And one of them is wastewater. And the wastewater can contain a lot of valuable compounds, for example, fatty acids that can be used for produce other valuable compounds. In this project, we are thinking about produce fatty acids to feed the animals. They can be used as prebiotics, be useful for other industry. Then we enter in symbiosis between different industries. That's why we perform this kind of projects with universities, different companies, different institutions that they have a relation and they want to exploit these ideas later on. In other areas of the world, it's different. Depends on their concern about what they have in the residues. In some countries, they don't really realize what in the wastewaters. Maybe there is no analysis, there is no control, they don't care. It can cause several pollution problems. For example, eutrophication, if there is a lot of nutrients, algal bloomings, or you can have death of fish because there is low oxygen, because there is a lot of COD in the waters. It can also produce evolution of pathogens in the water. And this can be prevented if you act upstream in the producers.
Actually, when you were speaking, and I mean, the last words that you mentioned in here about companies not being even aware of some of the content or the components of their wastewater, and they just discharge it mainly because they are not maybe aware or they just don't care about these kind of things. Now it brings to mind that, I mean, since you're interacting with these companies, what would be the benefits for a company who does not know about the component of his wastewater, thinking about his income and also sort of investing in bringing these infrastructures into his company to sort of treat the wastewater, recover these things, and then use them again? I mean, economically, would you advise a company to do something like that? And I mean, what are some of the ways that you try to educate some of these companies to maybe explore these kind of opportunities? Because I think that, I mean, if every company or every industry is supposed to do this, then we are literally recovering the nutrients and all the chemicals and stuff that we put in the wastewater before we discharge them. But unfortunately, we see a lot of these companies, especially even the fashion industry, going and moving their industries to Asian companies all around the globe and discharging and polluting most of these rivers that are located around these areas. And now we're having a big challenge with, trying to treat these water bodies and recover the natural ecosystem. So in summary, how do you convince these industries to maybe economical wise think maybe this is something feasible that they can do? And how do you sort of generally educate them and get them to adapt these kind of approach and technologies?
I think you just touched the one of the key parameters that is the feasibility always is linked to also the legislation of the area where these companies or this industry is located. The pressure to the companies depends a lot of their legislation. They also have the pressure of their consumers. Consumers have a lot of impact on the product that they buy, especially now we have indicators like the water footprint. It's important. And also for the companies, I will look at what I'm wasting, because maybe you have valuable products that you can recover and reuse again. For example, there are many companies that use brines for many types of process. We are doing a lot of projects with brines because the salt is a valuable product and the water is a valuable product. You can transfer, for example, this salt into diluted in water to other valuable compounds, like, for example, acids and bases. And this acid and this base you can use later on for cleaning.
Is that also applicable for the brine from desalination?
Yeah, indeed.
Interesting.
That's one of the uses that you can always get some chemical products that are from all these concentrated brines from desalination.
Wow.
And that's one of the applications are important to at least reduce the discharge of these highly concentrated brines into the sea again.
Wow.
You can produce these chemicals and feed the chemical industry.
Hi there, just a quick one. If you find our conversations worth listening, why don't you share them with your friends and connections? Please help us reach more and new listeners by leaving a review, commenting, or rating us on any platform where you get your podcast. We can't wait to hear your thoughts and ideas, so share them with us via a social media platform or email. Find more details in the show notes. Now let's get back into today's conversation. I don't know if listeners are excited like I am, but having this recovery system and ideas and technologies for, this industry is super exciting, because actually on the other side of, plastics and solid waste management, there is also a concern of how can we upcycle, how can we find other use for the waste that people are sort of generating in their supply chain. But then we forget about, this important sector, which is also wastewater. But it's exciting that we have technologies and ideas that can actually recover these individual nutrients and metals and all those compounds and sort of reuse them, or even collaborate with other industries who might need these kind of components for also their processing. But maybe before we dive into some of the challenges that maybe other parts of the world might be facing, of course, I think when we think about these technologies and stuff like that, there are concerns of high cost and energy demands and having very complicated infrastructure. But maybe before we dive into those potential challenges, maybe you can give us a little bit insight of some of these special technologies. I'm sure maybe this might be something that have copyrights with your industry, but could you give us a little bit insight of maybe if you're to talk to an industry, what are they supposed to expect? Are they supposed to sort of channel their wastewater to a special place and then they have these systems working and recover these nutrients for them? Or maybe you consult them to sort of have these technologies at their site? Or what kind of techniques in general are we looking at here? And are nature-based solutions incorporated in these systems?
Yeah, it also depends on what kind of wastewater we are treating with.
Yeah.
Because we have plenty of different industries, we have plenty of different wastewaters, and even inside the same sector of industry, from one factory to another, depends on their process inside. You can segregate or you can use this wastewater or not. Depends of what are the characteristics of this wastewater. Mm-hmm. First of all, what we do is normally characterize these wastewaters to know what is in. Also visit the plants to know in your process, can we segregate flows of water use to avoid that they go to the wastewater and recover directly? For example, one case is in the winery. If you can segregate certain cleans or certain what is supposed to be water coming from the fermentation tank, you can later on reuse that concentrates organic, especially sugars and organic matter for fermentation and produce, for example, ethanol.
Oh, cool.
And that is not high tech.
Yeah,
it's just fermentation of what it was supposed to be discharged. It's just looking what is in your cleaning process or what is in your stations inside your factory. It's just one example, but it highly depends of what you use in your process. You can recover directly from the one water that it's supposed to be wastewater, but you can, for example, harvest directly from the production process before it goes to the wastewater. Later on, if you waste it, then it's the problem from maybe other company.
Yeah, exactly.
And then you lose value of your wastewater. Another thing is that, for example, is that in a wastewater treatment plant, and you find out that you have several times discharged from some certain companies high concentrate water that comes with, for example, highly concentration of sugars. Then you can use them and bypass your systems to literally use it for your benefit.
But I have two follow-up questions on this, and I'm going to put them together just to get a little bit idea of, how feasible this could be in a community. So are we trying to establish the fact that every wastewater, no matter the type or the source, has something we can recover from? Is that a true statement?
It's not totally true, because it depends what is in the wastewater.
Exactly.
You can have a high COD coming from, for example, high organic content, and you can use for energy use. But at least later on, you can, for example, have recovery some nutrients that can maybe dissolve in the wastewater. For that solutions, you can use, for example, quite natural things like growing biomass. For
Yeah.
example, we have been performing projects with microalgae, and you also yeah. For example, we use also the water lentil, the lemna.
Yeah.
It's also a water plant that grow fast and you can harvest all these nutrients. It also contains a lot of protein. All these nutrients are later on transformed into proteins, and then you can feed animals or directly use as a fertilizer in
Interesting.
crops.
And for sure, I want to know what makes the system more efficient, because I listened to one interview by a biogas treatment system where they are converting sort of human waste into energy through the use of biogas. And one of the challenges that they had with their system was that they said for private, sources like homes, they have lots of water in concentration with the solids and the sediments. But then for public sectors, for public sources, they have more high quality resources from them. And I just want to know from your systems that, I mean, what are some of the challenges in here? Is it better for us to do the recovery at the source, let's say at the industrial level, or is better to collect all the waste to a waste treatment facility and then sort of, treat the wastewater to do this recovery, knowing very well that there might be some dilutions or, I don't know, this kind of mixture of sources of wastewater. But I mean, aside this, if this could be a potential challenge, aside this, are there some other challenges that maybe sort of you guys are still working on or thinking of exploring?
I think, in my opinion, it's always better to use where the origin is. If you act upstream, is always better because you have higher concentration. It's not get diluted. It can also be polluted by other sources, and you have more pure source of your, for example, your nutrients or your valuable compounds. Like it can be sugars, it can be proteins. For example, when I was doing my PhD, one of the challenges in was that depends of the concentration, your process of metal recovery is feasible or not. Because if you dilute too much, your process is getting more and more difficult because,
Yeah.
for example,
Yeah.
you want to recover electrochemically, you have higher resistance on your electrochemical devices. And
Exactly.
that's a huge challenge. It's
Yeah.
better to act in the origin where
The wastewater is generated, exactly.
your wastewater is generated and you have higher concentration of your valuable resource. There are always challenges, especially depending of the location. Sometimes your wastewater is produced in one factory and miles away you have your treatment plant with specialized for that kind of waste. Then you spend a lot of your budget in transport. That's why if you, for example, you bring technologies that are easy to install or directly on the producing sites, it's more valuable on that sense. But for example, you can also get the challenge of your energy source. That's why for most of this process of recovery
Mhm.
valuable compounds, you most of the time you need to spend a lot of energy, especially if it's by membrane processes or by fermentation processes. You need to bring the cultures to certain temperatures, or
Yeah.
that can be a challenge for sure.
But at least the good thing here is that the technology is available. I'm sure that in the coming years, there's going to be more investment to solve all these kind of challenges like high cost, location, energy, the infrastructure and other things to make it available to sort of everyone. Because I mean, if these big industries who are very rich most of the time are able to invest into this, and as you mentioned earlier, they can recover things that they can even sell and get money or even use back in their processing and have limited reduce the amount of investment they have to do to get new products and other things. But this is super important for, I mean, CEOs and industry and operators and other things to understand that the wastewater you are just discharging has nutrients and compounds and stuff that you can definitely recover, invest a little bit more into, and then sort of reduce the cost of production. But then, as you mentioned these challenges, I just wanted to follow up with a quick question that, I mean, in areas and in different regions where, I mean, this high cost and energy and infrastructure stuff could be of challenge to them. What are the alternatives for these people, or we have to wait for the future to brighten it up for them?
No, there are alternatives because, for example, in natural solutions like, for example, growing biomass or find natural processes. For example, there are several bacteria or plants or fungi that can solve the problem of harvesting those pollutants or at least remediate pollution before they reach. Then you can value this biomass, for example, for energetic use. That could be one of a natural solution that can be used in developing
Areas,
regions.
yeah.
Yeah, for example, electrochemical process also can be used almost everywhere if you have the ability to produce some electricity like wind power or solar energy. You don't need to plug directly to a network. For example, metal recovery can be done with continuous current. The solar panels produce directly continuous current.
Yeah.
You just need to transform the voltage. It's not a high-tech solution.
Yeah.
Doesn't require a pumping with high pressure pumps or bring special materials. If you want to recover, for example, copper, zinc, nickel, you just need to apply voltage, and the metals will start plating depending of your voltage. At the same
Yeah.
time, you are remediating the environmental problem, and you can maybe harvest these metals directly into a plate. These are solutions that are feasible and can be almost performed everywhere. You can think about other technologies, for example, membranes, or this will require more technification.
If there are solutions for natural solutions or simple techniques that we can also adapt in these areas, because I think this is very important for even remote areas, in even developed areas where they sort of need to or probably an area downstream where an industry upstream has polluted their water, and they sort of need to do something to recover their water and at least get something good to drink. They could also consider some of these techniques, simple techniques, to get to help them to get good water to drink. So how does the future look for this industry? Are there any expectations? Are we expecting to explore, amazing and exciting areas? And are you looking forward to some, collaborations, or how can people also connect with you as well?
AINIA is always open for companies, all kind of associations that normally work either in private projects or and also in public projects with public funding. It's just a matter of sit down and look at what is what is going on, what is the
Yeah.
problem, and what is the challenge that they propose to us, and look at if it's feasible from the very beginning. Because there are challenges that can be really nice, but they can later on. It's really difficult to get into practice because
Exactly. Yeah.
they are not feasible from the very beginning, and that's really important because especially working for companies, I learned a lot that the feasibility it's really important to sustain the company. It's like when we talk about sustainability, always about the environmental and the social, but also one of the most important things is economically
Exactly.
if it's feasible, because you cannot lose your company because you need to sustain it. Also, we have been participating in many European projects, but also we have projects with American countries, with Asian countries. We would like also to participate with Africa and also with Australia, and we are quite open to.
I hope that there are going to be more opportunities in this area. Super exciting conversation we've had today. Thank you so much, Dr. Pau, for sharing these insights with us. I've learned a lot from this, and I hope that listeners are going to have, more insights and also be very happy about all the conversations that we've had and find it, worth listening, especially even for people in the industries who have explored and have, sort of potential to use some of these techniques, and sort of always contact you. And of course, Pau's contact is going to be in the show notes. And so if you want to get in touch with him, definitely feel free to dive into that, send him an email or get on his social media platform, or sort of engage with his company to explore areas where they can help you. But before we close up on this podcast, I just want to sort of get to know your thoughts on sustainability. So generally, all the things that we are mentioning here has to do with sustaining the environment, has to do with getting to get the world and contribute to the regenerative economy. So for you personally, as an expert in the water sector, or specifically wastewater sector, what does sustainability mean to you personally, and what do you think your contribution is, helping to buttress that meaning?
First of all, sustainability is a challenge because
Yeah. A
it's
huge
a
one.
challenge, a huge one. And you need to always look at the three main sides of the sustainability: the
Yeah.
economics, the environmental, and the social. It can be socially relevant, but it cannot be environmentally friendly and economically feasible. In that sense, you always need to bring into balance these
Yeah.
three arms, and it's challenging. And in my opinion, there is a lot of possibilities that can be performed for the future, but and there's a lot of homework to do for the industry and for the society before we have the planet that we are dreaming with. Because
Yeah. Yeah.
it's a wonderful planet, but it's not the things that we have in mind, colorful and blue and
We wish.
uh, we wish we have. It's like we have mirage of the planet that we have, but when you touch reality, you
That's
see,
right.
oh
That's
man,
right.
there is a lot of homework to do.
That's right. Yeah, and you bring out really exciting things, and unfortunately, we are ending this conversation, and these things are coming up. But anyways, just before I let you go, as I know very well that for you, it's not just work for you; it's also passion driven. So, supposing that, I mean, right after lunch today, you saw on your phone that you missed a call from Marvel movies, and they were asking you actually that, should you have a superhero power change something in this industry, what superhero powers are you willing to choose, and what problem would you use that power to change?
Oh wow, it's quite amazing question because I've been always doing it even to myself. I'm quite a geek on that sense. I'm also I'm loving Marvel comics and also other editorials, but
Yeah,
and I like all the superhero movies. But it's really difficult because there is plenty of things that you can
yeah,
perform since be, for example, Dr. X and try to have super mental powers and try to read the minds and convince
yes,
people that will be a nice superpower okay, what are you thinking really about this? Okay, the way that I can convince you is put myself in your mind
yes, and
and know
changing something in
exactly
there. Yeah,
change something in there or bring some light inside
yeah,
to
yeah,
make you act or get more empathy to this kind of problems or realize that this can be a good opportunity for yourself and you are not seeing it because you maybe not really concerned. Maybe if you can have the only thing is that all these kind of superpowers have always the downside of people will not know if they are thinking by themselves or they are have been brainwashed.
but at least
And
you're
that's
causing them to do something good, so I mean.
of course, that's always the sentence that of Stan Lee that he says a superpower will always bring it with a high responsibility. Good thoughts. If not, we are doomed.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. But I mean, this thing you mentioned actually brings a lot to mind. And I'm sure we can digest this, I mean, forever, because you're highlighting the fact that, all these things that are happening, the pollution and the fact that the Earth's regenerative capacity is really going low out of our activities could actually be connected directly with human behavior. And if there is a way we can convince and educate people on the fact that, hey, look at the things that you're doing, industries, can you be concerned about A, B, C, D? Can you actually invest a little bit into, recovering energy from recovering nutrients, recovering compounds from your wastewater or whatever activity that you're doing? Can you look at it again and see how you can do it in another way that could be more sustainable? Then we could have a better world than what we dream of the world being in the future, and even for the future generation could be possible. And I think that's a very exciting superpower. And I really wish you can have that in the near future. And it will be exciting to sort of collaborate with you in that sense. But thank you so much for spending time with us on today's show. And I really enjoyed every bit of it. And you've shared a lot with us. And whilst you leave, are there something that you like to leave us with, like your last words or something that we missed that you like to highlight a little bit?
No, first congratulate you for your program. I really your podcast is. I think it's a marvelous thing. Teach people how we can be better.
Yeah.
We have.
Yeah.
That's why I really love to hear, really live in touch and also educate myself into other solutions or other people that it's far away and things different from you and from. I really like your podcast because it's teaching many people how to have a good behavior.
That's right. Really appreciate that. Thank you so much. It
Mhm.
means a lot really coming from you, because you have really helped me a lot in my career and in my education especially, and I've really learned a lot from you. So yeah, thank you to hear those words coming out from you, and I really hope that lots of people are going to enjoy this episode. And yeah, for sure, we're going to see you on the next episode for sure. And don't forget to dive into the show notes and connect with Pau and his team. And definitely, if the feedback is exciting and people learned a lot, definitely, I'm sure there'll be questions that we can follow up again on a part 2, hopefully later this year or next year. And so, yeah, thank you so much for coming, Dr. Pau.
Thank you.
Hey there. Thank you so much for sticking to the end of this episode. Now there is a call to action. So why don't you engage with our community of green charters on our social media platforms? Find more details and links in the show notes. Get involved with the podcast by emailing us at glcpodcast@echoametsolutions.com or DM via our social media platforms. We cannot do the same things expecting different results. The urgency of climate change demands actions now and not in 2050. So, dear Green Chatters, see you on the next episode, and remember, live green.